Hello, today we will go over the Carlsen game versus Wesley-So in the Sinquefield Cup, round 10. Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley-So. It is a piano, quack-old piano, and we start with E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop C4, Bishop C5, standard moves, castle, Knight F6, attacking E4, D3, protecting, castle, C3, D6, H3, and H6, preventing both bishops from coming to the G file, from attacking Bishop G4 or Bishop G5, pinning the knights. Rook E1, A6, A4, stopping B5, A5, making a hole on B5, Knight BD2, still developing, Bishop E6, Bishop B5, Knight to A7. Here, Knight to E7 is preferred by the engines. We go Knight E7, then D4, E takes, and Knight takes with equality. But if, let me see, if C takes, Bishop B4, still equal. So after Knight E7, Knight A7, we have D4, hitting the center. Knight takes. So let's see. Engines prefer E takes. Knight takes. Carlsen picks up the bishop. Also, the B5 knight is still attacked and has to move. B3 prevents intrusion on C4. Rook to E8, centralizing the rook. C takes. Queen takes. Now instead, if D takes C5, we have Knight takes E5. That's an option. D takes C5, Knight takes E5. And then maybe Knight to D7, opposing the knight, putting the question to the knight. Knight D7. Then we can Knight F3. Computer prefers Knight D3, keeping the eye on C5. Computer prefers Knight D3. Still, then we'll have Knight C6. So after Rook E8, C takes, Queen takes, Bishop to A3, attacking the Queen. C5. I suppose the Queen just moves. Let's see, Queen. My clicker's messing up here. Oops. If Queen to D7. Oh, just Knight takes pawn. So C5. But computer says Queen to A6. Well, if Queen to A6, Knight takes pawn, then Bishop takes H3 maybe? Yeah. Then Knight takes pawn, then Bishop takes H3 because the Knight is attacked by the E8 rook. It's not attacking the Queen, picking up tempo. So Bishop to A3, Wesley though plays C5, blocking. Then we have Knight C4, attacking the Queen. Queen takes, Rook takes. Bishop takes C4, B takes. So Queen takes, Rook A takes. If Rook E takes, Then bishop takes, pawn takes. Then b6. Oh, not knight takes right away. Knight takes right away. Then rook to e1. Knight can become trapped if he picks up this pawn. Then bishop b2, hitting the knight. But rook a takes, because you have to keep the e4 pawn protected. So bishop takes, pawn takes, then b6, protecting c5. Knight to h4, headed for f5. Rook a d8, f3, consolidates g4, g6, g3. g4 was an interesting option right here. G4. Then after that, after g3, we have knight h5, hitting g3, king up to protect g3, knight c6, bishop c8, threatening the h6 pawn, king up to protect, bishop e3, rook takes, rook takes, rook to d8, opposing the d1 rook, wanting to exchange down to an ending where white would have an advantage. But white refuses because he sees the weakness on b6. So rook to b1 attacking b6. Yes, an exchange would ease everything. So rook to b1 attacking the weakness. Rook b8, knight g2, knight f6. King over to e2. Carlsen wants to centralize his king. Knight to e8. Let me see, computer prefers h5 maybe. Yeah. But we have, if any knight move, engine likes knight d7. Well, knight d7 keeps an eye on b6 and frees the rook. Knight d7, then g4. Knight d7, then g4. And play continues, with white having the advantage. But knight to e8, which was sort of puzzling. Bishop to f2, then knight d6, hitting c4. Knight to e3, protecting c4. Knight to e7. Computer says that was a bad move. Knight d8 is preferred here by the engines. Knight d8. Let's see, knight d8. Oh, and then knight e6. Well, knight d5, knight e6, and black. Well, the c4 pawn is still attacked. Let's see, knight d8. Another variation I missed though, knight d5. As if knight takes. Then king d3. Then knight back to d6. Then we take, then bishop takes c5. Would rook take c5 yield such? Yeah, still an advantage. Rook takes c5. But rook takes b6. But bishop takes c5 would be stronger. Right here, bishop takes c5 would be stronger. So knight to e7, knight d5, the knight takes. Knight takes, c takes, threatening c5 again. Bishop takes c5, then rook to b7 because of the bishop takes c5 threat. Then king to d3, wanting to play c4 eventually. f5, which was a mistake. Computer prefers c4 check here. c4 check, king to d2, and then knight to c8, and white maintains his advantage. And then white would eventually play f4. So f5, black falls apart with this move. c4, f takes, rook f7, then rook takes b6. The b6 pawn was a weakness. Rook takes, and now white has a huge advantage. c5 and a5 are both weak. a5, c5, and e5, these three pawns are super weak. Once they drop, white's passes are closer to queening. They'll queen, yeah. His position is very weak. Those pawns will drop. Rook takes, then rook takes, rook check. King to f8 was his best defense here. Played king to f6. One move, then d6. And e5 is coming. Wesley resigned in this position. So king to f8 was the better move. Then rook to e6, hitting g6, then king to f7. We can't play e5 right away because rook d4. You have to be careful pushing the pawns right away. So king to f3 would be an option. King to f3, maybe rook to b4, making way for the a pawn. And rook to c6. Then you push the pawn, then rook takes. And white has two passers, and white can stop that a pawn by putting the rook on the a file and putting the king on f4, where he has to hide from checks though. But then white could also just check the black king once he goes to the 6th rank here by rook to a6 check, and then move the king up to f4 and then e5, keeping out of the way of these back rank checks from the black rook. And then white would just advance his pawns, these two connected pass pawns. So that's game round 10 from Carlsen versus Wesley So in the Sinquefield Cup. Hope you enjoyed.